We are finally here. Yes, we have made it 22 long, excruciating weeks of the NFL season, and we have finally arrived at the doorstep. Super Bowl 58 between the San Francisco 49ers and the Kansas City Chiefs. And this is going to be an exciting one, guys. I know deja vu, like we are seeing these two teams in the Super Bowl once again, but I feel like they're expected to deliver. We're going to go ahead and cover all the positional battles as well as the head coaches are in the coaching staff battles between the two teams, as well as our keys to victories for both teams on how they can win the game. And of course, we're going to end it with our predictions on who we think will win Super Bowl 58. I'm your host, Matthew Raridan, and this is Total Sports Talk Beyond the Lights. What's happening, everyone? Welcome to Total Sports Talk Beyond the Lights. Like I said, this is our Super Bowl preview show where we're going to go over pretty much everything that we can to get you guys ready for the Super Bowl. I know this isn't the ideal Super Bowl for a lot of people if you don't live in California or in where Kansas City play Missouri. You're not going to have a lot of people who really want to pull for these two teams right now. And I kind of get it. In a perfect world, the Steelers would be in it, Packers would be in it, Buccaneers, but it's not a perfect world. We can't do that. But these are two legit teams that deserve to be there. And we're going to give our opinions on, who is going to win in these key positional battles. But first, I want to introduce my co-host today. We've got David Street.
What's up, everybody?
And secondly, we've got Ed Smith.
Welcome, y'all.
Guys, as football fans, are you guys ready for this Super Bowl? I look forward to the Super Bowl every year just because I'm just a big football fan. I know that these two teams, it's tough on really who to pull for, but it's still football, guys. So, you guys both really, kind of pumped up for the Super Bowl?
Listen, we get the one Super Bowl that almost nobody wanted, but it's still a Super Bowl. And it's why, I laugh. I understand a little bit, but I have to laugh when people say, I am not going to watch the Super Bowl. Yeah, you more than likely are. So,
well, I'm in the position of football.
Yeah.
I'm from Texas. Everything's about football. And when you have a Texas boy that's leading one of the teams, it's going to be about football. Patrick Mahomes coming from East Texas, going to Texas Tech, going to Kansas City, and Kansas City being a team that originated in the Dallas area. That is a big thing for us as Texans. So I am pumped to see the Super Bowl this year. And I'll be quite honest, I do see a route to more people watching this Super Bowl because everybody, as much as they love their underdog story, they want to see the favorites. They want to see the best of the best play each other. And that's what I think we're getting in this game.
And also, I think the Chiefs have developed to a point where, just like the Patriots, more and more people tune into the Super Bowl to see them fail. So,
yeah, sometimes when you despise a team, you watch to see their downfall. It's just kind of how it is. And I think that's exactly what we're going to see. And, I grew up always watching the Super Bowl, not only for the football, but the commercials. It's always been legendary with the Super Bowl commercials. So I'm looking forward to that. Every year, though, I hope they get better. And it seems like they let me down. They just aren't the same anymore.
Dude, the commercials have totally sucked the past 3, maybe 4 years. I can think of maybe 1, maybe 2 good commercials in total over that time span.
Yeah, like Ed said, the what's up? and the Doritos commercials, the Clydesdales, those are memories that we have growing up watching these commercials, and it ended up being such a spectacle. You had the whole world turning into it. It became such a huge hit with these commercials. You're looking at, for a 30-second ad, I don't know what the running number is now, but it's pretty high.
I think it's $25 million an ad.
Yeah, that it's just ridiculous. But it pays off because people watch the Super Bowl. They really do. So I'm looking forward to it, guys. It's going to be, I feel like, in my opinion, a great Super Bowl, and I'm hoping it is, because as a football fan, I'm here to watch great things happen, and I'm expecting to see so. But I want to get into these positional battles here, where we're going to cover kind of a one-on-one situation here with our own thoughts and just essentially who we think is going to have the edge. And I'm going to start here with the first one, guys, and that's QB1 for both teams. That's Patrick Mahomes and Brock Purdy. And yes, if you're listening or watching right now, I'm sure the obvious is, well, Patrick Mahomes by far, right? And yeah, you'd be right. But I want to get into it a little bit more. Patrick Mahomes, he is a winner, guys. He really is. And this is the stage where, in all honesty, as much as you want to not like him, this is where he belongs. Patrick Mahomes belongs in the Super Bowl because he works his tail off. He is so talented on many levels that he's just worked his way to getting there, and he deserves to be there every year. I'm just going to say that, guys, as much as a lot of people hate it. Patrick Mahomes, just like Tom Brady did all those years, deserves to be there. It's not like he does nothing and he just gets lucky because his defense carries him or he has an amazing running back that carries him. No, Patrick Mahomes is this Chiefs team, and it does revolve around him, but not in a selfish way. Yes, you may not like the antics of his wife or his brother, but when it comes to a pure talent standpoint, Patrick Mahomes is by far one of the best in the league today, and he is making a name for himself as one of the best of all time. And I truly believe that. Watching this guy from Texas Tech to now being with the Chiefs, he just gets better every single year, and it's like, all right, how can you stop? Can you let the NFL catch up at some point? No, because why? Because he's just that great. Same thing with Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan just was not going to slow down. He retired, came back, another three-peat. That's just how great Michael Jordan was. Patrick Mahomes is not slowing down, and he doesn't plan to for some time. So Patrick Mahomes, what I've noticed in the playoffs, though, so far this year, you're not going to see the same Patrick Mahomes that's throwing 350-plus yards each game, throwing bombs like we're used to seeing, especially with the Tyreek Hill days. This is a Mahomes that is playing probably the smartest football of his career because he has a lack of weapons on the outside like he's used to having at wide receivers. And we're seeing him just be so much smarter on who he's throwing the ball to, when he's throwing the ball. And you're seeing him a lot more calm within the pocket, but that's because this offensive line is doing a darn good job protecting him. But that's where I think this is where it's going to be really key for, and I'm going to get to that later on keys to victory, but Mahomes' comfort within the pocket and knowing when he needs to scramble, I think just really is going to give him such an edge in this game, let alone his experience in the Super Bowl. I think that becomes a big key. The Super Bowl is the brightest lights are on you. But I'm going to talk about a guy that I don't really think gets phased about these lights, and that's Brock Purdy. This is Mr. Irrelevant from Iowa State, okay? Brock Purdy has exceeded so many expectations. When you're Mr. Irrelevant, which is the last pick in the NFL draft, your expectations, that bar is already low. Well, not only has he exceeded that, he's done it tenfold. That's just how great Brock Purdy is as a quarterback in the NFL. And you could sit here and say, well, they got a great defense, they've got great weapons. Well, that's so be it. Don't let that overshadow just how good Brock Purdy is. Is he a superstar? Maybe not yet, especially in this age where I just talked about Patrick Mahomes, or we just saw last night in Baltimore with Lamar Jackson winning MVP. Brock Purdy is neither of them. But who Brock Purdy is? Well, he's Brock Purdy, and that's what I really love about him is he's a quarterback that is not worried about anyone else. He doesn't want to be compared to anyone else. He wants to go out there and he wants to give the best performance of his life. And that's what I respect the most out of him. I mean, this guy's got a heart of a lion. We saw last year in the NFC Championship game, he tried fighting through kind of his injury. Ultimately, he had to leave the game. But here he is. He brought his team all the way back. They are in the Super Bowl again this year, and they would not be here without Brock Purdy. But the thing about this Niners team is they wouldn't be here without a lot of their players. But Brock Purdy is one of those that I think he's really just been a leader of this team, commanded this team, and also deserves to be in the Super Bowl with what he's done. I'm a Steelers fan. We saw Brock Purdy week 1. You would have thought this guy was Tom Brady 2.0. You would not have thought that he was just a rookie last year. You would have thought this guy was at least a 7-year vet because that's how he carries himself. He's not cocky. He's very, very humble, and he's always trying to get better. And in his second year, I think he has really exceeded by far in that level. But when it comes to these two quarterbacks and who has the edge, I do think it is a no-brainer here with Patrick Mahomes. He is just that guy that is always going to be here doing those guy things. That's just how Patrick Mahomes is as a quarterback. And on the biggest stage of them all, Super Bowl 58, I expect Patrick Mahomes to continue that trend and lead his team. But there's another really close battle here on the field for both these teams, and that's going to come out of the tight end position. That's Travis Kelce. That's George Kittle. Tight end university. I mean, these guys have really kind of reincarnated this tight end position in the NFL, and I love it. I absolutely love it. The tight end is a very key position, and these guys do it best right now. And Ed, I want you to kind of tell the audience here how you feel.
Well, you had mentioned how Patrick Mahomes is ahead of the curve against everybody right now. And it's because they've kind of reinvented offense in today's NFL. You know, for many years, it was wide receivers, you know, deep shots. It was, you know, fly routes. It was those bunch formations. It was those swing passes, wide receiver screens. These two teams have actually taken the tact of controlling the center of the field as opposed to trying to get around the defense through those wide formations and wide plays. Controlling between the numbers, that's what a tight end does. And these two do it better than almost everybody in the league. There are some exceptions out there that could possibly be in the same conversation, but to have these two face each other in the Super Bowl, that's not a coincidence. That's how winning offense is done in the NFL at this point. You know, when you're talking about Travis Kelce, you know, this is the Hall of Famer. This is the guy that has been the gamer in the playoffs over the course of his career because he's had Patrick Mahomes. He had Alex Smith before that. You know, just as, you know, coming out of Cincinnati, he didn't have a whole lot of, you know, pomp and circumstance. He did not have a lot of people looking at him to be the next big thing in offense in the NFL. Well, that's changed. With Travis Kelce, him going through the seams, you know, doing those choice routes, you know, being that guy that is the blanket for Patrick Mahomes to get in and out of any situation up and down the field. That's what this guy does. He actually accounted for 23.5% of the passing yards of Patrick Mahomes this year. He's the go-to guy. He is the guy that Patrick looks for in all those tough situations. And the question becomes, who's going to cover him? Is it going to be Fred Warner? Is it going to be Hufanga? Who knows? We'll have to see what that matchup looks like when we get there. But when you see Travis Kelce, if it's in zone, he's going to find where you're weak. If it's in man, he's going to beat your leverage. that's just what he does and what he has consistently done. And he is a really good end of the line blocker when he needs to be. He doesn't want to be. Almost no tight end in the NFL wants to be the end of the line blocker at this point. But it is truly known that winning football is going to be with that tight end blocking when necessary. And we'll talk about the running backs here in a little bit. On the other side of the ball, you got George Kittle, who is very much a mirror image of Travis Kelce. It's just a different offense. Kyle Shanahan's offense, Andy Reid's offense, they came from the same tree. So you're going to see a lot of the same concepts. Shanahan's idea of run fitting, of option passing, getting those play action digs out there, that's where you're going to see different looks and different feels of the pass game. George Kittle runs great when it is on that play action, getting past the linebackers in front of the safeties and just basically outmanning whoever is in front of him down the field. He actually had more yards this year than Travis Kelce in 30 fewer receptions. That makes him more explosive. So he's not the prime target like Travis Kelce is, but he is an effective target. And that is what the Niners offense really looks toward. He is a helpful, balanced part of that offense. He's a second or third option outside of CMC, Debo, Brandon Ayuk. Those are guys that people think of when they think 49ers passing game. George Kittle isn't the first guy that they think of, which he could be because he has just as much a percentage of the passing offense as what Travis Kelce does. There's a lot there, so many similarities between these two guys, and the question on that side of the ball becomes, who covers him? Is it Justin Reid or Willie Gay? There's going to be a lot of speed on defense with the Chiefs because that's how they like to run defense. I could see George Kittle having a huge day, just being bigger than everybody else around him, and find some seams that really benefit the 49ers when they go on their play action passes.
Yeah, I think it's. Oh, go ahead, David.
Yeah, I think it's rather interesting how you say that George Kittle isn't the first person you think of when you think of the 49ers weapons. When like his first year in San Francisco and maybe his second year, certainly his first couple of years with the Niners, he was absolutely the first weapon that that everybody thought of. But that just goes to show how much the Niners have evolved on offense.
Absolutely. I mean, Brandon Ayuk, I don't think we expected to see how much he's really transformed in the NFL. I mean, to being a legit weapon for the Niners. But yeah, George Kittle was just Mr. Reliable for the Niners for those years, that he was the easy go-to target. But, I'm glad you brought up Travis Kelce in the blocking game, because there was a play last week, guys. I don't know if you saw, it was on the goal line where he totally laid out Patrick Queen, threw him to the ground with ease, and it was just like you don't get to see that side of Travis Kelce much because he's the catcher. He's not the blocker. You aren't seeing it that often. But tight ends, guys, they you need to know how to block in the NFL. So being able to see that is quite refreshing. However, though, I would love to see him try to do that to Fred Warner. I think that's a different game, but we're going to see if that actually happens this week. I'm actually excited to see if they are on each other. That'll be a fun little matchup to see, Fred Warner being one of the best up-and-coming linebackers in the NFL. So that'll be a good sight to see. But David, before we get over to you, is there anything you might have wanted to say as far as Patrick Mahomes and Brock Purdy at all?
Yeah, I mean, as far as actually, I do have something to say, but I'm going to wait until we get to our keys to victory.
Absolutely.
There is something I wanted to say about Purdy real quick.
Yeah.
He started 47 games in college at Iowa State. That is a program that tends to be the underdog no matter who they're playing.
Yeah.
So you take the quarterback from that program, make him the last pick of the draft. He has got a Tom Brady sized chip on his shoulder times two. So having him prove himself in the NFL, you're just eating out of the palm of his hand at this point.
Yeah.
And by the way, like I recently found out that Brock Purdy grew up a Gator fan. So go 49ers, just in this case.
There you go. Well, and also, I don't know if you guys saw the video that has been
Hey,
circling
don't be
around
jealous for Chomp.
of George Kittle when he lost to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, where he was like, I'll be back," to have that mentality of wanting to get back there and have that urge, that will to win. And it's nice to see. And David's got something he wants you to see, Ed.
Bring it.
Yeah, if you guys really want to hash this out, how many
November 9th, we'll hash it out.
How many Longhorns are in the Super Bowl? How many Gators are in the Super Bowl? I don't know if you guys happen to know off the top of your head, but yeah,
I'm pretty sure there's actually more Gators on the Chiefs team, but funny enough, I'm not rooting for the Chiefs.
I know there's a Longhorn going in the Hall of Fame this year.
Yeah,
Steve McMichael.
That good. Yeah, but David, I want you to kind of walk us through. Actually, this is going to be the running back battle between Isaiah Pacheco and Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, certainly. Well, listen, guys. It almost doesn't feel right to do a comparison because the disparity in talent and skill between the two is not even close. Like, just doing a comparison feels very disrespectful to Christian McCaffrey. But listen, I don't want to throw too much shade at Pacheco. For the role that he's played in that offense, he has had a very good season. But there's no question. I mean, McCaffrey almost won MVP, and Pacheco didn't even come close. And even in the postseason, McCaffrey has stood out. Yes, Pacheco does have more yards than McCaffrey does in the postseason, but the Chiefs have also played one more game than the 49ers have, okay? When you look at the averages, Pacheco is averaging 85 yards a game in the postseason, which is definitely not something to scoff at, but Christian McCaffrey is averaging almost 10 more yards a game. He's averaging 94 yards a game. Now, it should be noted that, in fairness, the Chiefs have faced two top 5 scoring defenses in the Bills and the Ravens. And if you want to count total defense as far as yards go, then they faced 3 top 10 defenses because the Dolphins were top 10 in total defense. The 49ers, meanwhile, the competition they faced, it has not been nearly as strong. And actually, the other thing too about Pacheco is that even though he has not been as good in the postseason as Christian McCaffrey has, he has certainly had his moments. And the 49ers defense, as vaunted as it usually is, the run defense has been very, very leaky, especially in the game against the Detroit Lions when the Lions were just completely running up their throats. I think the Chiefs would be very smart to take advantage of that. So I could potentially see Pacheco going off on the Niners defense just because of how leaky their defense has been. But guys, at the end of the day, this is Christian McCaffrey we're talking about, and listen, whether the 49ers win or lose, and of course we'll get to that point later with our predictions. I do think that Christian McCaffrey is going to have a better game than Isaiah Pacheco.
Yeah, I mean, Christian McCaffrey there was a reason he was the Offensive Player of the Year. This guy can do everything. He is your Swiss Army knife on the field. That's what I've compared him to, and I'll continue to compare him to that because that's just what he does. But with the Chiefs, fun thing to note to me is every year that they've gone to the Super Bowl, they've had almost like a different running back that's been that guy. It was Clyde Edwards-Helaire, then it was Jared McKinnon, Isaiah Pacheco, and it's like they could go through running backs like it's nothing. Why? Because they have Patrick Mahomes there. But Isaiah Pacheco, they continue to find these guys. I mean, they did with Kareem Hunt. We all know Kareem Hunt started out there, and he just took the NFL by storm. And Isaiah Pacheco, he is just such a physical back. He is fun to watch. I will say that. If you like watching running backs play, Isaiah Pacheco is one to watch. But Christian McCaffrey is just Mr. Do It All, and he does it amazing. So I can see why you would give Christian McCaffrey the edge, rightfully so. But don't be surprised if the MVP of the Super Bowl comes down to possibly these two players.
Totally agree with that. And, this could be the coronation for Christian McCaffrey as the Offensive Player of the Year. This could be a coronation of Pacheco saying, look at me, I'm better than the Offensive Player of the Year. Having that rivalry within the game. And quite honestly, I'm here for it. That is certainly a key to victory that we'll probably dive in a little bit deeper on what our predictions on here in a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. But this, in my opinion, is my favorite battle of the game. And this is not players. We are now switching over to coaching staff. We're going to start with the guy that calls the plays on defense for the Kansas City Chiefs and Steve Spagnuolo versus Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers offense. This is by far my favorite matchup, and I'm looking forward to what Ed has to say on this battle.
When you look at defensive performances and being a top 5 defense in this league, you don't necessarily think of having nothing but sub packages. But that is exactly what Steve Spagnuolo has done through most of the year. He loves having 5, 6, 7 DBs on the field just to fill the speed to cover ground, because that is part of a lot of offense in the NFL now. That's the adjustment to the adjustment for a defensive-minded coordinator going against the offense that's been laid out there for a lot of the teams that are trying to catch up to what their offense is. Now, when you have that type of system, what counteracts that is actually Kyle Shanahan's offense, because Kyle Shanahan is going to have 2 tight ends, whether it be 21 personnel or 22 personnel, to counteract all that additional speed. So you're going to see just a will of who is going to win in each side's base concepts. Is it the Kansas City speed kills, or is it going to be the basically tank of the Kyle Shanahan offense just rolling over the smaller defenders? Now, one of the stats that I have seen is that Steve Spagnuolo loves to blitz his cornerbacks, and he had blitzed his cornerbacks, I think, over 54% of the time this year. And when they did, they gave up only 3.1 yards on each of those plays. If you wind up having that and getting Christian McCaffrey on the ground before he can get rolling, because he is facing those extra DBs coming at him, you are going to set up your offense for success. So Spagnuolo, if he can get that type of efficiency out of the defense, that's going to just turn around and make offense. With Kyle Shanahan, he runs some of the best run fits I have seen in an NFL offense, and Christian McCaffrey does great because he is a 5-tool guy. You get him in space, he will make defenders miss. You get him on the interior, he has the vision to get through the line. Those run blitzes that Spagnuolo is going to run is going to try and disrupt all that, and that's going to be the chess match. It's going to be all around that 10-yard box, because the 49ers offensive line, Trent Williams is going to play, and he is a difference maker for that offensive line, even though it's the interior of the offensive line that has really been driving the train with those trap plays inside against the teams that they have played with their run fits. On the defense, you've got Reed that made the play that saved it against the Ravens. He is going to be roaming around out there, just making plays, trying to cut in front of those throws that Purdy's throwing out there toward George Kittle, those underneath routes to Deebo Samuel, giving help to against Ayuk. You're going to see a lot of different schemes being run within everything that's out there, but in the base of it, it's going to be 22 personnel versus nickel defense. What is going to win? And that is, to Matthew's point, that's going to be the one of the funnest chess matches of this game.
Oh, absolutely, by far. I mean, that's what I love about Steve Spagnuolo is that people still don't know a lot about Steve Spagnuolo, and this guy's been in the league for a while now. And if you want to talk about a defensive coordinator who can be among the best, I consider people who show up when it matters the most. And Steve Spagnuolo has done that almost every year the Chiefs have been in the Super Bowl. If you want to see a great defensive call for a game, you turn into these games that the Chiefs have won in the playoffs over the last 4 years, and that's because of Steve Spagnuolo. So I expect this to be the best matchup and the funnest to watch if you really want to look at the kind of the analytics side of things, because Steve Spagnuolo is probably the highest risk taker in the NFL, but he does it smart. I mean, last game against the Ravens, he blitzed Lamar Jackson over 50% of the time. Why did he do that? Because he knew he'd probably crumble. If Lamar Jackson found just the tiniest bit of hole to escape, that's Lamar Jackson's game right there. I mean, you're talking about a guy who can outrun most defenses in the NFL with Lamar Jackson, with how he runs, but yet Steve Spagnuolo continued to blitz him the entire game. And same thing with the cornerback blitzes. He does it so smart. But Kyle Shanahan on the offensive side does the exact same. So I'm just really excited for this one.
David, did you have a comment on that particular matchup?
No, not really. Other than the fact that I completely agree with Matthew that Steve Spagnuolo does seem kind of underrated, despite the fact that we know how obviously how great of a defensive mind he is.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. So I'm gonna go ahead and go to the next coaching battle here, and that is none other than Andy Reid for the Kansas City Chiefs and Steve Wilks for the San Francisco 49ers. And I'm gonna start with Steve Wilks this time. Steve Wilks, we all know that he didn't have the best stints as a head coach in the NFL, although he served as interim with the Carolina Panthers and then head coach for the Arizona Cardinals. They didn't really seem to work out the best for him. I think where Steve Wilks works best is as a defensive coordinator or defensive backs coach, where he's spent most of his career. And I think he fell into this position. This was the perfect position for him to really fall into with the departure of DeMeco Ryans. Steve Wilks is he's also led this defense to being a top tier defense in the NFL. And I see a lot of strides within their game because of Steve Wilks. There are just guys out there that aren't meant to be head coaches, and that's not a bad thing. They are just great coordinators, and I think Steve Wilks is one of those guys. He had a lot of hype as wanting to be the next head coach for a lot of people, but I think their teams are realizing that this guy is a lot better as a coordinator, and I feel bad because he's going against Andy Reid, guys. The cheeseburger smuggler. Watch your nuggets because they'll be gone in a second. Andy Reid is he's just that good, guys. And a lot of people I don't think a lot of people realize just how good Andy Reid is because of you got this really big guy on the sideline. You have him in all these State Farm commercials, all about cheeseburgers. But Andy Reid is a phenomenal, not only head coach, but offensive minded coach. Ed has talked about it on here plenty of times of his stint in Green Bay and what really shaped him to be the coach that he is today. So much so that he was expected to follow suit with Mariucci, where Holmgren put a stop to that. Holmgren knew what he had in Andy Reid, and Andy Reid really succeeded in such a positive way because of that. As we all know, he went to the Eagles, had Doug Peterson as his quarterback at first, but drafted Donovan McNabb and eventually brought that team to a Super Bowl. He did so much winning with the Eagles, although they never won a Super Bowl. They did fall short against the Patriots, and they fell short in several NFC championships against the Arizona Cardinals, and then, of course, the Green Bay Packers. But this guy just he is a winner, just like Patrick Mahomes, and if there was ever a head coach and quarterback that were just perfect for each other, it is these two guys. You may hate seeing them on their commercials, but these guys click more than Adam Sandler and his movie Click. They are just two peas in a pod, but they complement each other. I talked about Patrick Mahomes, his talent on the field, but there's always that guy that's behind that, the brains, and that's Andy Reid. Andy Reid is a phenomenal head coach that I just really enjoy watching, and that's why I said I feel bad for Steve Wilkes, because I just don't think he holds a candle to Andy Reid in this game. I think it's going to be very tough if you're looking at a coaching standpoint on who's going to do better in this game. I think the Niners defense is still going to be phenomenal, but we know when it comes down to the end of the game, who are you choosing to win the game from a coaching standpoint on those sides? Andy Reid or Steve Wilkes? I'm choosing Andy Reid 10 times out of 10, because that's how much faith I have in that guy, and that's how much he's proven himself. So, Andy Reid, he's going to have the edge for me by far as well in this game. But Steve Wilkes, I want to say I really like where he's at in this with the Niners, and I think he's going to be there for a while.
Explain that again with those nuggies.
With those nuggies, yeah.
When you think about it, Andy Reid is the best coach that two franchises has ever had.
Mm-hmm.
You take a look at the 13 years he spent in Philadelphia, and now it's been how many years in Kansas City?
That's 2012.
Started there. Was it 12 he started there?
I think it was 12. Yeah.
Okay, that
So
sounds
you're
about right.
talking a long period of time with just two franchises, and he is the best coach that both of those franchises have had. And we're talking against Super Bowl winning head coaches in those franchises. Yeah. So that is a huge respect thing for Andy Reid across NFL coaching.
Well, you know what's kind of crazy is that Andy Reid, in my opinion, has now been with the Chiefs for long enough that whenever I think of Andy Reid, the first team I think of is the Chiefs. Like at some point, maybe the first team I thought of would have been the Eagles, but he's been with the Chiefs for so long now that they're the first team I think of when I think of Andy Reid.
Yeah, I mean, it makes total sense. And keep in mind, Andy Reid is more than just the head coach of the team. Most of the time with the Eagles, actually, I think the whole time with the Eagles and partially with the Chiefs. I mean, he's had a lot of these final decisions for the team itself, and it just shows that he's very smart outside of the football field as well. That he's very highly respected to have that role. But David, I want you to take us through. This is the last battle of the game here, and some games are decided by this. Actually, more than what people really think, and that's special teams. So take us through both special teams coordinators for these teams and who may have the edge.
Well, the truth is, guys, neither the 49ers special teams nor the Chiefs special teams have been that special. So let's go through some numbers here, okay? The 49ers under Brian Schneider, they've averaged in the regular season, they've averaged 21.9 yards per kick return, 8 yards per punt return. They've had 13 fair catches, which is darn near the bottom. And their kicker, Jake Moody, he's 17 of 21 on field goals and 60 of 61 in extra points. Now, when you look at David Tube, Tube, I think it's Tube, David Tube, special teams coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs. So the Chiefs are averaging 20.1 yards per kick return, 9.3 yards per punt return, and 17 fair catches. And Harrison Butker is 33 of 35 in field goals and 38 of 38 in extra points. So overall, if you look at the numbers, neither unit stands out as particularly great, but I think I would give the slight edge to the Chiefs. Now, maybe you didn't catch it initially, but keep this. I want you to keep this in mind, okay? Jake Moody of the 49ers, field goals. 17 of 21, extra points, 60 of 61. Harrison Butker of the Chiefs, 33 of 35 in field goals, 38 of 38 in extra points. If you notice something, it's this. Obviously, you should notice that Moody has had way less field goal attempts, which is not surprising because the 49ers have been so freaking good on offense that obviously they have not had to rely on Jake Moody that much, and that also explains why he has over 20 more field goal attempts. Whereas you look at Harrison Butker, it's no secret that the Chiefs' offense has not been that great this year. Hence, why Butker's field goal attempts, have been a lot more than Moody's field goal attempts. But certainly, this does mean that the Chiefs know that they can rely on Harrison Butker. Whenever their offense doesn't get going, they know that Harrison Butker is Mr. Reliable for them. So even if Mahomes and Kelsey can't create their magic quarterback to tight end connection, the Chiefs at least know that they can rely on Butker. But I think this is going to be an interesting matchup. But guys, as I said before, and I understand that Ed maybe has some numbers, there's just really nothing particularly interesting about these two units, because with these two teams, it truly is all about the offense and the defense.
Well, if you look at the numbers, also in the punting game, Wisniewski actually had half of his punts wind up inside the 20-yard line. That is a long field to go against the 49ers. When you're talking about the defensive personnel that they have to come at you, that is difficult to make it all the way down there. When you're talking about Kansas City's, that's going to be a question mark as well. So it's not just the kickers, it's not just the returners, the field position battle. When you get to this point in the playoffs, everything has to be buttoned up. It doesn't matter if you're talking about time management, if you're talking about punting, if you're talking about that one extra point to make sure that you are 4 points ahead instead of 3. That is a huge part of the special teams that many people do not point to as a deciding factor, when in reality, it is. We've seen plenty of times this year, like the NFC Championship game, where when you can't rely on your special teams to do the job that they're there to do, you make decisions that can cost you ball games. And I don't think either one of these coaches are in the business of costing themselves ball games by having players that they do not trust in those situations. However, if there is somebody to not trust out of either one of these special teams units, it's going to be Jake Moody. Mm-hmm. With an 86% make rate on his field goals, that's difficult to come back from, versus Harrison Butker's 94% make percentage on field goals. And mind you, the only 2 field goals that he missed the entire season were between 30 and 39 yards. Everything else was spot on. So that is going to be the only question mark that you have when it comes to the special teams, is can the head coaches trust who they have out there? And in my opinion, I think Andy Reid has the advantage in this over Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah, and certainly special teams can make or break a team. It can be a difference maker. Like, I know this is college football, but the same logic applies. The semifinal game between Michigan and Alabama, Michigan special teams almost cost them a chance to go to the national championship. So yes, I think you're spot on, Ed.
Yeah, I mean, in that game specifically, that's pretty much what was going to be my point, actually, in that Michigan-Alabama game. It was more the positional battle. Yes, I get that their punt returners had trouble catching the balls, but it was more the actual punts, in my opinion. It was the positional battles, and that's why I feel like uh, this is so important. I'm so glad Ed said it because I was going to, is these punters. This is big because we know that when it comes to the field goals, the edge does go to Harrison Butker. Keep in mind, Jake Moody is a rookie, but he has missed some very key field goals that have cost the Niners this year. Whereas Harrison Butker, he has been very reliable. But this game is also indoors. And I think that's also going to play a big factor too on because Vegas is indoors and you got this punting game here that's where I think it really comes down to. And the 49ers and Wishnowski have just really been dominant on that side. We don't live in a day and age where we have the Devin Hesters returning punts and field goals anymore. That stat is almost obsolete. We don't see that anymore. So instantly my mind doesn't even go towards that. It goes more towards field goals and punts. And I think each team has an edge here on both those issues.
And for the record,
one more, if I could, just to put the proper enunciation in front of his name, Hall of Famer Devin Hester.
Sorry, yes, Hall of Famer, yes,
yes, Hall of Famer Devin Hester, and well deserved too. But for the record, by the way, it should also be noted that if you want to highlight Jake Moody's struggles in the playoffs, he's 3 of 5 in field goals. Meanwhile, Harrison Butker is a perfect 7 of 7 in field goals in the postseason.
Numbers don't lie.
Yep.
TJ Watt got snubbed. Sorry, but that's a topic for a different discussion.
For the record, guys, if you're wondering, well, hold up, like you thought Myles Garrett was going to win it. Yeah, there's a huge difference between thinking someone was going to win it, but I can vouch for my guy here. He thought Myles Garrett was going to win it, but he always thought TJ Watt should have won it. So just in case you go after him for that.
Sorry, I just had to add that in there, but I want to get your guys's keys to victory for these teams. So I'm actually going to split it here. Ed, I'm going to give you the keys to victory for the Kansas City Chiefs.
The key to victory for the Kansas City Chiefs is to have Pacheco run wild between the tackles. They've got to be able to control the center of the field, and also have not only the running yards, but also the option routes off of that to create some spacing there for Travis Kelce, because Travis Kelce is going to have the edge over George Kittle if you're doing that positional battle like I talked about earlier. There's also more options for San Francisco to run the center of the field. But when you're talking about Kansas City's keys to victory, having Rashee Rice be the guy that can take some heat off of Kelce down the field, that's going to be big as well. So it really becomes a three-headed monster as far as weapons for Kansas City, and they all have to show up and work as a single unit. It can't be hero ball one or the other, because San Francisco's defense is too good to let one person beat them. It's going to have to be a collective effort, and it's going to start with Pacheco running between the tackles and Patrick Mahomes being Patrick Mahomes.
Yep. All right. David, keys to victory, San Francisco 49ers.
There's only one key to victory for the San Francisco 49ers, and that is they need to call Todd Bowles and ask, hey, man, how the hell do we beat the Chiefs? Because the Bucs are the only team in the Patrick Mahomes era to beat the Chiefs in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
In all seriousness, though, man, I think when it comes to the 49ers, man, like their keys to victory is they need to do the best they can to contain Travis Kelce and just try to shut every other weapon down. As we've talked about, their run defense has been very leaky in the playoffs. And to be honest with you, I don't trust the run defense to get any better because I think Isaiah Pacheco has the potential to run wild on them. So I don't want to make it sound like I'm saying they should just completely abandon the run defense because obviously they should. But I think they need to recognize where their weakness is right now, and they need to focus on shutting the passing game as much as they can. You're probably not going to be able to shut down Travis Kelce. Like heck, even the Bucks, if I remember correctly, even though the Chiefs only scored 9 points, and their offense didn't score any points, that was all from field goals. If I remember correctly, Travis Kelce still had a great game. I think he had like 133 yards or something like that. So you're probably not going to be able to stop Kelce, but if you can contain him and you can just shut everybody else down, and then of course let Christian McCaffrey run wild, then I think the 49ers have a great chance at winning the game.
I think we're saying very much the same thing. So in my mind, it becomes two stats to keep an eye on. One, and it's the same stat that you look at any big game like this: turnovers. Who's going to make the big mistake? Two, time of possession. Who's going to keep the other offense off the field? Those are the two that I'm looking at if you're going to boil it down to 1 to 2 stat lines to keep an eye on who's going to take this game.
Well,
Yeah.
then I'll add a third point to that, and that is, if it comes down to the wire, which field goal kicker do you trust more, Butker or Moody?
Well, there is a player that you guys have not named yet, and this is my key to victory actually for the 49ers. That is to contain Chris Jones. If you've watched Chris Jones, not just this season, but this playoffs, he is infiltrating that backfield like it's his job, which it is his job, but he's doing it like no other. And I think that is going to be such a big key for the Niners is if they could contain him, because if Chris Jones is back there, he's making things uncomfortable for Brock Purdy. And if you're going to make Brock Purdy so uncomfortable enough, that means you may get a mistake, and that mistake is a turnover. And just like Ed said, to watch out for the turnover battle. Mahomes, especially in the Super Bowl, rarely makes those mistakes. So it's almost like who's going to make it first. And if Chris Jones is back there all up in your grill, you're most likely going to make that mistake first. So I think this is actually a battle of the trenches, in my opinion, for both teams for their keys to victory, because on the Chiefs side, you want to run that ball with Isaiah Pacheco. So that means the Niners need to get their crap together on defensive line to really battle that offensive line. And then on the other side, the Niners offensive line needs to contain Chris Jones and that defensive line as well to protect their quarterback. So I really think it's going to come down to that, in my opinion, is who can protect the most and who is going to win in the trenches. Because that's where games are won. We know that, guys.
Yeah. Yeah, and I will say, if the Chiefs can figure out a way to beat Trent Williams in that battle, then their chances increase significantly. As Ed has rightfully pointed out many times, you can make an argument that Trent Williams is the offensive MVP because in games where he didn't play, Ed, I don't remember what it was, but the 49ers were like, what, 1-3, 1-4 without him this year?
Exactly. And Purdy has looked awful in each of those games. Throwing for, I believe it was like 9 of his interceptions this year were in games in which Trent Williams didn't play a majority of those games.
Yeah. Yeah, you know who else looks awful without one of their main guys? Yeah, the Steelers when TJ Watt's not there. Defense player of the year. But just tell you how I really feel, guys. But last but not least,
Packers.
I want to get your guys' prediction.
Baker was robbed.
Baker was robbed. We got a lot of opinions on this, guys. We're gonna have to have another show just for this, and I guarantee you we will. But
Seriously.
the AP is a mess. But guys, I want your predictions on this game. David, I'm gonna start with you. Who wins Super Bowl 58?
Well, I'm pulling for the 49ers, but I just have a feeling that the Chiefs are going to win this, man. Like, we haven't had a repeat Super Bowl winner since the Patriots in '03 and '04. So quite literally it's been 20 years since we've had a repeat winner. So how funny would that be if we get a repeat winner on the 20th anniversary? But I'm going to take the Chiefs 25-24 over the 49ers.
Ed?
So I'm gonna go. I'm gonna give you some stat lines that I'm predicting. I'm going to predict Christian McCaffrey to have 78 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. Brock Purdy, 34 of 41 for 380 yards with a touchdown and 2 interceptions. Isaiah Pacheco, 95 yards and a touchdown. Travis Kelce with 120 yards and 2 touchdowns. And the Super Bowl MVP, Patrick Mahomes, 29 of 34 for 315 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. I am eating cheeseburgers on Sunday night because the Chiefs are going to win this game 27-25. It's going to be right on the nose for that spread of 2 points. So it's going to be a complete push.
Hey, what do you think McCaffrey's receiving yards are going to be in this game, Ed?
I'm going to put him in the category of he's going to break one out. So you'd probably see him in the 40s.
I would say
Okay.
40s, 50s. I feel like over probably combined 120 combined rushing and receiving yards, which it probably is the best and safest bet to make is Christian McCaffrey getting his rushing and receiving yards. But we kind of have a little trend going on here. The last 2 games the Chiefs have played, the Ravens and the Bills. I have chosen the Bills and I have chosen the Ravens because I felt those were the teams to win. I am not making that same mistake again. I am choosing the Kansas City Chiefs to win Super Bowl 58. And yes, this is, it sounds like a trend between the 3 of us here. I have it 24-23. So, I mean, I have a 1 point margin, David has a 1 point margin, and Ed has a 2 point margin. You could tell we think it's going to be a close game. And it's going to be floating around the over under, which is 47.5 as of now for the game. So we're right around the over under there. But the Chiefs, I can't do it anymore. I can't bet against them because, well, they continue to prove me wrong. So Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs are going to beat the Niners once again in the Super Bowl, and they will be your Super Bowl 58 victors. So it sounds like we pretty much have that all the same there. And I mean, to go back to the positional battles where I think we all could easily say Patrick Mahomes over Brock Purdy, Travis Kelce over George Kittle. So that's 2 for the Chiefs. Christian McCaffrey over Pacheco. So maybe 1 for the Niners there. The Spagnuolo and Kyle Shanahan was probably the closest one. It's kind of tough to actually say who's going to win that one because, well, Spagnuolo is 1-0 now against Shanahan in the Super Bowl. And Andy Reid, obvious over Steve Wilks. And the special teams is also kind of up in the air, but I feel like ultimately we'll give it to the Chiefs because of their kicker. So you look at those battles, it seems like it's going to swing in favor of the Chiefs. So maybe that's why we chose the Chiefs to win. But I'll be very interested to see what you guys have to say on if you think the Chiefs are going to win this. And give us your predictions. Drop your predictions in the comments below. Let us know if we're wrong because we may be wrong. And we will find out come Sunday. So stay tuned for that. And continue to hit that like, that subscribe button, share these videos, and always let us know how you feel, guys. We value your opinion. But Super Bowl 58 is upon us, guys. So I'm looking forward to it. I hope you guys are as well. But until next time, we are rounding third, and we are headed for home.